All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Deep End. Hope everyone's having a great week so far. I think both Ari and myself are. I shouldn't speak for Ari, but I'm having a great week. Ari, how about yourself, man? How are you?
I am
How are things
also
in the world
having
of Mr. Gutman?
I am also having a fantastic week. Uh, by the way, I just want to throw out there for everybody, if you haven't seen Ryan's portfolio yet, which I think we're going to talk about in today's episode, it is fully there for all to view on Blossom. Blossom is powering up this very podcast, The Deep End. So go check out Blossom. If you haven't downloaded already, link down there in the description and pin comment. My portfolio is also there. Some big news in my portfolio. But I want to kick it over to you, Ryne, because we jumped on and Ryne said right off the bat, I got news. I said, I think I know
Yeah,
what it is. But Ryne, let me give it to you. What's the news?
yeah, man. And after I spill the beans on this, remind me to circle back to Blossom because I have a cool little tidbit to share with you there. So, guys,
Should
the
I get the
big
champagne ready? Like,
yeah, well, definitely, man. Actually,
no
get
shit,
that
just
pint
water,
of
but
Ben and Jerry's ready.
yeah, there we
Um,
go.
Before we started recording, Ari had a big old fresh pint of Ben and Jerry's he was about to dive into. But no, guys, the big news, we officially did it. Some of you guys probably have already seen this on the channel and elsewhere because I've been posting about it. But we finally, freaking finally
Let's
hit
go.
$100,000 in the portfolio. Oh my gosh, it's
How's
about
it feel?
time. Dude, it's funny. I mean, we talked about this, what was it, a couple weeks ago now? Just about what it would feel like to finally hit that milestone. And it was cool. It was really cool, but it was cool for about 30 seconds. And in the video that I put out on my channel, I actually showed like the live reaction in real time, my first time seeing the six figures in the portfolio. And it was cool, man. And one thing I said in the video was you know, it's cool because leading up to that point, there was so much hard work that went into getting to that point. It was kind of like, okay, here's how I described it. It was kind of like how I felt after finishing my half marathon. Leading up to it, there was, a ton of work, a ton of hard, grueling work that went into getting to that point where, you were training for the race or whatnot. Then you did the race, which was hard itself. But then by the end of it, you feel this big sense of accomplishment. Everything leading up to that was finally fulfilled. And it feels cool. You feel, give yourself a nice pat on the back. But then afterwards, it's like, okay, now I'm just ready for a margarita. And that's exactly how I felt with reaching reaching $100,000 in the portfolio. But overall, very cool feeling. I don't think it'll last. Like, it would not surprise me if by the end of this week we were like back under 100K because we're going to be doing that hovering thing still, and it goes up and down. But it's cool to officially see it. Yeah, very happy.
So you gotta, I mean, at least if we go down this week, at least you got the taste, and that's all that matters. Because once you get the taste, I mean, at least for me, what happens whenever I experience that little win, or just the taste, if you will, it's like I gotta get the full pie. I gotta.
Yeah.
This is now yours for the taking.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, man, actually the coolest part about all of this is seeing seeing all the comments that have come in. I'm probably gonna have to spend a good hour and a half responding to comments today just because I got so many great ones that came in. That's been the best part, is just seeing all of the it's just when you hit these milestones, you realize how many people are actually in your corner, cheering you on, rooting you on. And a lot of people have been watching me build this from the very beginning, over 5 years now, or about 5 years now. And so it's, I kind of feel like we're in a sense, we're kind of in it together and kind of experiencing it together. And I think that's been the coolest part about the whole thing. You know what I mean?
What was one of the best, or not best, I want to say, like, I don't know, rewarding comments that you've read so far that really touched your heart?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't know off the top of my head, but because I really haven't had the chance to read through all of them and respond to them. I just been busy this morning working out, and as soon as I got back home, I was just getting ready for this, so I just haven't had the chance. But I see them, and I kind of have glanced at them, and I see a lot that are saying like, yeah, I started watching you at this point. I started watching you from the very beginning, or I started watching you when you had $20,000 in your portfolio or X number in your portfolio. And it's cool to see you finally hit this. And I don't know, it's cool to hear from, and I even get comments from people who don't normally comment, and they'll say that in the comment. Like, I watch every video, but I don't normally comment, but I just wanted to let you know, congratulations. So I don't know, that just also speaks to just the big community of people, the big group of people that are in the community. And I feel very fortunate to have all of you guys cheering me on. So thank you everyone who's listening and watching and has done so over the years. Because that's that stuff that keeps me going. And I would say those type of comments really mean the most.
Yeah, that's where I just want to say, like, I don't think people understand. They definitely don't understand the workload that goes into content creation and, YouTubing. And I think it's so important for everybody to realize just how much work goes into something as simple as Ryne and I showcasing, our journey for everybody to see and follow along. And I think this is where I just want to be open and be like, hey, if you're not already subscribed to the Deep End, subscribe to the Deep End. Mm-hmm. Join us in this community on this journey, and let us know in the comments like how we're doing, because this really, it does make all the difference. And when we see, we're kind of fulfilling what's delivering through on value for everybody, it gives us so much motivation to, I don't know, either strategize on new ideas or just keep going at the end of the day. And that's such an important thing. I feel like so many people out there just think, oh, they're content creators. Like they do this on the day in, day out, easy. And it's like, no, you lose motivation sometimes. And you really do need sometimes a really good comment. Or, I don't know, a whopping amount of subscribers all of a sudden. And you're like, all right, I'm in this thing because X, Y, and Z. I know I have the support from the community.
Yeah, piggybacking off of our conversation from last week, it really does remind you of your why. When you get those comments that are, people, it doesn't even matter what age. I feel like we get a lot of them from young people, from older people who say, I just started investing after watching your videos or watching this video. Those are the best comments, knowing that just because of our gibberish here on the internet, people have decided to make this incredibly positive, life-changing decision for themselves. They've made a decision to better their lives and better their futures just from watching us share what we're doing and talk about what we're doing. There's really no better comment to receive. And like I said, it definitely reminds you why you're doing this in the first place, because that's really what it is all about, just to inspire people to take action on this thing that so many may be intimidated to do. But I think going back to this milestone, if this isn't proof that like anyone can build a portfolio, I don't know what is. I really don't, because no one's special over here, don't have a background in any of this stuff. It's all been self-taught, and it's all just come as a result of being consistent and staying disciplined.
Well, now that you're retired,
yeah, exactly.
How about we go right into another motivating factor, which is, in fact, what keeps me and you going, if I had to narrow it all down, which is income, dividend income, and just overall portfolio growth. How was last month for you? I'm excited to get into the kind of the meat and potatoes of our portfolios and really talk about, as we enter the new month here of July, what exactly we brought in June and how we performed, if we kick stocks out, if we brought new stocks in, kind of a full breakdown.
Yeah, this will be fun, man. Little portfolio update action. So I will say the month of June was a really solid month of dividend income. It wasn't my all-time best month, but it was pretty close to it. In total, I brought in about $315. And I think average across my portfolio, like an average month at this point would be about $280 or so, which is, even that's crazy to say, almost $300 a month, not having to lift a finger. But yeah, this last month was a bit above average, about 315. And a big chunk of that actually came from none other than SCHD, who paid me my largest dividend payment of all time. I got about $106. That was my largest dividend payment of all time, and it was also the first time I've ever received an individual payment over $100. So it was kind of a double whammy milestone payment, which was really cool. So overall, very solid month of income. What about yourself, though?
It's funny. I actually, so many people out there since I have been changed. Well, you know what? Let me back up. That's a great month. It's a solid month that you just had. And congratulations. It's all contributing factors into your now latest milestone.
Thanks, dude.
So major victories all the way around. And, with my portfolio, I always think it's interesting because everybody always thinks like, oh, he's not a dividend stock investor per se anymore, and he kicked out all the good paying dividend stocks. You know what? I came in pretty solid this month at $250 and something change worth of dividend income. And so as you were sharing your numbers, I'm looking at mine and I'm like, you know what? Like, it's not that different.
No.
And people, I feel like always create the case where if you dabble a little bit more into lower yielding dividend stocks and you're gunning for, high growth, dividend stocks with that average, I try to aim for an average dividend growth rate of over 10%, at least.
Yeah.
And then really the big players in my portfolio, like UnitedHealth, that baby's averaging about 17.4%, I think, per year. So just heavy hitters. UnitedHealth was one of the big plays that came in this month. But I will say my can't even say best performer, the biggest dividend paycheck I received last month came in at $94.20. And that came from none other, a very surprising holding here, from VGT, Vanguard Tech, Vanguard Tech Fund.
Nice.
Which is crazy to say because you wouldn't really think that this fund would deliver a solid amount. But I also want to say it's my strategy in focusing on the 7 to 10 best holdings that I can possibly find. Well, that's what happens when you really lock in on them and grow solid positions in each of them. I'm not spread thin. I'm really buckled down there in the weeds of all of these holdings in my portfolio.
Man, you must have a buttload of VGT because I'm looking at the dividend stats and the yield in the trailing 12 months is only about 0.5%. So to be able to be bringing in, what did you say, about $95?
Yeah, $94.20.
So that's about $380 per year, something like that, right? Man, you probably own 130 shares or something like that.
I believe the last I looked, I should have looked at Blossom right before I jumped on. It's
that's
about
pretty crazy.
29-30% worth of my portfolio.
Wow.
And
Unreal.
Here's the kicker. Just so I don't get any cries out there in the comments like, oh, it's not a good stock. It's not a good pick because it's not a high-paying dividend stock. I factor in my profile, investor profile. I'm 30 years old, got a ton of time to be hanging around in the market. But not only that, what I really want to share when it comes to VGT is just the powerhouse that it is. If you want to just go all in on tech, but you don't know what to pick, because tech sometimes is hit or miss, well, invest in all of these companies, which is your sliver there then of VGT. And I think what's unique about this one is if you add it to your portfolio for straight growth, it's been this Vanguard Tech Fund that has been driving insane amounts of growth for me upon the recent rebound here we're experiencing. So all in all, my portfolio is right now sitting at $288,027 as I just shared that.
That's crazy. So that's like a $7,000 or $8,000 difference compared to just last week, right? something like that.
Yep.
Maybe even more.
And you know what's even crazier? You want to hear something nuts? This kind of makes me upset, but not really. If UnitedHealth got their stuff together yesterday, I would be over $300,000. But
Dang.
UnitedHealth, my big loser right now, which we did see some momentum there earlier today and yesterday, but it's not where it needs to be. Waste Management also fell, and those two stocks combined definitely put me under the 300,000 mark. But just UnitedHealth alone, if UnitedHealth went right back up to where it was when I initially invested in it, it'd be $12,000 back in my pocket.
Dang, so you'd be right at 300K.
I would just be right above it. Now add in
Wow.
Waste Management, which begs a question I'm going to ask you in about 20 seconds. So Waste Management also, came down, slid over the last couple of days, which is fine. These are not stocks I'm worried about at all. They will rebound in due time. We're seeing right now, when growth stocks get going and everybody starts to transition away from the value and go into growth, this is exactly what we see. And anyways, UnitedHealth and then Waste Management is also down for me here. So if Waste Management also kicked back up, I'd be a few $1,000s over 300,000. And so the question I want to ask you is it even worth? And I know me and you like picking stocks, but let's just talk about like brass tacks. Is it even worth investing into individual stocks? Because I was like, you know what, Ari, if you just had all of your money in the S&P 500 and you had then split that between the Vanguard Tech Fund and the S&P, I mean, dude, you'd be way over 300,000
Yeah,
right now.
it could be. I think it's easy to question it when you see the ETFs up and then the individual stocks down, but if it was flip-flopped, if it was the opposite, you probably wouldn't be questioning it as much. Whether or not it's worth it, it just depends. I think, like I said, there's going to be times where certain ETFs outperform individual companies, vice versa. There's going to be times when individual company A outperforms individual company B. So it's really hard to make that decision just based on what's happening right now with the share prices. Um, but whether or not it's worth it, I don't know. It depends on the individual, right? Like it just depends. I don't know. I think it depends on if you have an interest in any of this stuff and care to spend time with it. If so, then it could be worth it, and you could be rewarded for the extra effort that you put in. It doesn't always work out that way, but it can. You at least have the opportunity to see outsized returns, and if that's something that you want to go for, then yeah, it can be worth it. But if you're fine with just the market returns, just 8, 9, 10% in the S&P, then that's not a bad way to go either.
Let's
So
just
it's
say
tough to
someone put
say.
together like a, you know, makeshift portfolio for themselves. And, I've been using Ticker a lot lately, which I really love, by the way. I don't know if you've used Ticker at all. You could do these
I-
crazy charts that
Okay.
I've like just begun playing around with them, and
Yeah.
comparison charts on these stock. It's cool. Anyways, I've been playing around with Ticker and, just building portfolios, model portfolios, and testing them. And my thought here is like, no matter how boring something is, because there's a lot of things in life that are just boring. I was helping a kid out earlier today, 12-year-old kid, and his father wants me to work with him on some motivation and kind of life direction, and he's like, I like running, it's just so boring. And I was like, yeah, sometimes work is boring, but you got to do it, or like whatever it is, it's boring, but you got to do it. And I find often that the most boring things in life are like literally the most important. And we want everything to be exciting, and that's just not how the cookie crumbles. And so when it comes to investing, as boring as maybe a two-fund portfolio like I'm talking about might be, or even a single-fund portfolio might be, because I think a couple weeks back, didn't we talk about always benchmarking your portfolio to like the S&P?
We might have. Yeah.
Like just performance wise, like know how you're performing and know if you're not beating the S&P 500, you got to really question, your strategy, if it's the right thing for you. Because at the end of the day, it's about winning. Even if it's a dividend ETF, I'm not a hater against going dividend ETFs here. I'm just saying you better be beating some of these ETFs, or otherwise, if you're not, I don't know, maybe get a new a new hobby. I don't know. You just want to be beating the S&P, or you want to be beating some of these indexes.
Yeah.
But keep it simple, keep it boring, and maybe have fun on the model portfolio. Why not do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you keep
Yeah.
investing boring and you're bringing in all the returns, then you've won.
Mm-hmm.
And then you
No,
can have your
absolutely.
fun on the model portfolio.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it does take I guess, the downside risk out of it with investing in individual companies, but it also doesn't allow you to benefit from, well, receive the potential benefits that can come from it. So it really just depends how you do when picking stocks. That's what it comes down to. But yeah, I to your point though, I don't think. First of all, I agree with you on what you said about things being boring. You need to do things that you don't want to do to get what you want. To get the reward, you have to go through the trials and tribulations. It's not just going to be handed to you. And those things are typically never fun, whether it's running or lifting weights or eating broccoli, whatever it is,
So
or
the last one I
investing
enjoy,
money.
actually.
Yeah, I
I
know,
don't know about you, but
seriously.
when I make broccoli and I eat broccoli, I'm like off the charts.
I love, I love a good salad. And I used to really love broccoli, used to eat a lot of it, but I don't know, and it's fine, but it's these days for me, it's really got to be doctored up, some like butter and probably salt and stuff
Oh,
like
you
that.
fancy, man.
Yeah. But anyway, no, the point is you do have to do boring things that you don't want to do to get what you want out of life. And as it applies to investing, even though it can be boring, that doesn't mean that you should seek to make it exciting. And it might sound like that statement kind of contradicts what I was saying a few moments ago. If you're curious about this stuff, or if you're interested in this stuff, then maybe it could make sense to explore individual companies. I think that's different. Having a curiosity towards something and exploring that is different than doing things just for excitement, just to get a thrill out of it. You know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily think that you should make decisions on your portfolio just to get some sort of dopamine hit from it. I think typically when people do that, that's when people start making short-term decisions. And like I said, I think that's different than exploring a curiosity, which is why I at least maybe, I don't know, this is how I justify it, I guess. Maybe it's right or wrong, I don't really know. But that's at least why I choose to invest in individual companies. I'm really interested in this stuff. I want to learn more about it. I want to get experience doing it and developed my skill set doing it. And I see it as a craft, and I want to get better at the craft in the same way that someone might want to get better at woodworking, or becoming a master beer brewer, or any other craft that you can think of. I think about it in the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not at this point, advising, suggesting, or, recommending anybody go out there and just terminate their portfolio, put it all into the, model
Yeah.
portfolio and do a single stock. If you enjoy investing, enjoy it. But these are some of the deep questions that I ask myself sometimes, because at the end of the day, I have a goal, and I have to be open and receptive to new ideas or strategies that are just going to get me to my goal. And if I'm running off the same basis sometimes of like why you start, there's a book, right? What got you here won't get you there. And I always think about that, just that title in and of itself, because what got me here, what got me, started, whether it was on YouTube or whether it's investing itself and showing everybody the journey, was around dividend income. But I had this goal still in mind when I first started. And although it was exciting to receive those dividend paychecks, I got to be honest, okay, $250 hits the account, and it doesn't excite me like it used to, the dividend income, because I'm like, you know what? Are you doing this for dividend income, or are you doing this for your goal? And at this point, I have this goal that I'm really excited about, and dividend income is an aspect of it, but it's not the goal. And so I gotta, at least for me, this investor over here, Ryan's got to, understand that goal at large and get there. And like when I see my what gets me excited is watching my portfolio jump by $8,000, $10,000 from last week. And I think I told everybody last week I have this big tax bill due. And so I was like, oh shoot, like maybe this is gonna hold me back from investing, from hitting that $300,000. And then the whole market jumps, and I'm like, oh, I'm in the zone. Like maybe we could make this happen. And then I gotta like phone UnitedHealth and be like, hey guys, you got to get your stuff together because literally this big loser. But yeah, it just got me thinking. Is it worth it? Like, yeah, I enjoy picking individual stocks, and I enjoy looking into the companies, and I enjoy all of it. But I want to win at the end of the day. That's what matters to me. So I don't know. I was thinking about that. You mind if how many companies paid you out a dividend this past month? What did what do those numbers look like? And does that excite you still the same way that it used to when you run through all these numbers?
Man, that's a really good question. Before I touch on that though, I do want to say, like in your case, I think that you've set yourself up to where you can have your cake and eat it too. I think you've really given yourself the best of both worlds. And it sounds like the small exposure that you have to individual companies scratches that itch for you. And, you're good beyond that, And so I think you're settling into a good balance for yourself based on your goals and what you want out of your portfolio and also what you want to put into it. So I think it's working for you. I wouldn't question it too much beyond that, because that's at the end of the day, that's what really matters. But getting into your question, so you want me to kind of just run through some of these dividend payments here?
Yeah. Let's
okay.
Yeah, why don't we just run through all the payments that we got just to see what came in?
Yeah. So let's see. I'll do it relatively quickly because I got quite a handful of payments. So Visa was my first payment in June. That was about $14. Nothing too crazy there. Zoetis, I got my first dividend payment from those guys. So that was cool. That was about $11. J&J, $53. Nice payment. That was actually, besides SCHD, that was my other large payment for the month. Chevron paid me about $34. Snap-on about $20. Realty Income about $30. Main Street Capital Corporation, $14. I got a small special dividend from Blue Owl Capital Corporation, like $1.30. So nothing crazy there.
They wanted to help you hit that 100,000, man.
Yeah, hey man, every little bit helps. Clear Secure paid me $16. I think this is my second or third payment. I think my third payment now that I've second payment that I've received from Clear Secure. So $16 there. And then Main Street actually paid a special dividend in June. So that was, the first payment was for $14. Second payment was for about $17. So that's pretty nice. And then we closed out the month with that 106 from SCHD. So pretty good batch of payments. And I'm looking at like the companies that paid me, and it's a really mixed bag, right? We've got some higher yielding investments like Realty Income, Main Street Capital Corporation, Blue Owl. We've got some stalwart dividend payers like J&J, Chevron, SCHD, even I'll lump it into that category. And then I've got some great like high growth dividend stocks, great dividend growth stocks. How about we call them that? The Visas, the Zoetis, Snap-on, even Clear Secure. I'll put them in that category too. So it was a really mixed bag just in terms of the companies and where they fall on the dividend spectrum, which makes me happy to see. I'm really happy with that balance. And I think at the end of that, your question was, what was it? It was, what was it? You'll just have to remind me.
When you look at all of those, I don't know, I think you have a spreadsheet. So when you look at your spreadsheet, do you still get the same excitement that you got when you first started dividend investing?
Oh yeah, I very much do. And I actually think that as the numbers gotten larger, my excitement has grown even more. And actually this last month was a great example. $315, being now in the 300s is a pretty new thing for me. My This is only the third time that I've been in the 300s. The last time was back in March. I got like $340, which was my best month of dividend income ever. And when I see that number in itself is really exciting to me. Not that I can use that number or use that, I can, I guess. Not that I will use that income. I obviously reinvested, but just to know, just to look at that and know I had over $300. I had pretty much all my groceries for the month paid for without having to lift a finger. If I end up becoming homeless someday, knock on wood, if things really go south in my life, I end up just losing everything, I at least can pay for groceries every single month moving forward for the rest of my life. So there is that. And knowing that excites me. And it also helps alleviate some financial stress, I think. But like I said, it's that money's getting reinvested. I'm not touching it. So yeah, that number really excites me. But zooming out beyond that, what excites me even more is just seeing the trend. And this trend has occurred both with my dividend income and with the portfolio value. It's done the same for you. This trend is the same for everyone who consistently invests in their portfolios. I'm looking at this chart on my spreadsheet, and there's some ups and downs in the portfolio value and the dividend income, but generally speaking, the slope is up and to the right. And that's really what makes me excited. Being able to see the tangible progress over a long, long period of time. And for me, the exciting thing about that is just proof of concept, basically. It's proof that the sacrifices that I'm making and have made for the last few years are paying off. And as time goes on, my financial situation is improving. I'm getting closer and closer and closer to reaching my goal of being able to live off of dividends at some point. Now, with that said, that's not the only thing. Kind of like you were saying, like dividend income is a part of your strategy. It's not the only thing. I feel that same way, even though I claim to be a dividend investor, and I will be a diehard dividend investor until I die. It is not the only thing that matters. I don't want maximum dividend income at the expense of everything else you could ask for in your portfolio. I think it's also important to see my portfolio value going up. And if you invest in the wrong assets, your dividend income could be going up, but your portfolio value could consistently be going down over a long period of time. And so for me, having both is important. And I'm seeing, the same exact trend when it comes to the portfolio value. The 100K being, prime example of that. So both things are happening at the same time. Dividend income's going up, portfolio value is going up, and hopefully that just continues to happen well into the future. I think it will. I have no reason to believe otherwise. But to close the book on this and to ultimately answer your question, yeah, the dividend income still really excites me, just for all the reasons I blabbered about. Hopefully all that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I look at, when I get dividend income, and I have to say, I was ecstatic when I first started and I got the dividend income, checks, and I got to write everything down and share it on YouTube and how much dividend income, was coming in. And then, once I started to, again, change my mindset or thought process around everything, I was kind of like, oh yeah, it's the end of the month and a new month, so I got to create a dividend income video and share how much dividend income came in. And I get how it can be exciting for people and alluring, but again, for me with my goal, I'm like, yeah, it's all right. It's good. Just reinvesting the dividends, of course.
Those are my favorite videos to make, man. My favorite ones every month. Oh yeah. Sorry to cut you off.
They were so much more exciting for me, man, in the earlier days, because even like a 25-cent dividend, I was like, let's go, and then I was like, why are you cheering on? And I know the logic, right? You'll probably say, like we were saying before, every penny counts, which it does. It really does. I just think I come at this whole deal with like less is more. And so the more I watch, and I haven't seen I haven't seen it a lot lately, and maybe it's because I don't really watch as many YouTube videos actually at all anymore. I do have this weird obsession with watching like rookie cop videos on YouTube sometimes for my lunch break. I will, but
That's
I
cool.
really stopped watching financial YouTubers. And like,
Yeah.
first of all, I never want to kind of cop ideas and steal someone's thunder, and just anytime you watch someone else's stuff, you get it. It's like ideas pop in your head. They're not even your ideas; they're just someone else's ideas.
Yeah, well, it can very easily become like an echo chamber of the same video being made by everyone, which
That
that's
happens
just
sometimes.
dude, it happens all the time, and it only happens because someone makes a video, it does well, and then everyone wants to make that same video. So it just
Yeah, it's like the
everyone.
video goes viral or whatever, and then everyone's like, "Oh, let's make that the classic XYZ dividend video." And so I try to just stray away from it. There's a couple people that I watch, consistently. You're one of them, just given the nature of everything,
Thanks,
the
man.
deep end, us,
Likewise.
but we don't invest the same way. And that's another thing. I think it's important, you're investing differently than I am. I'm looking at, so I had payments two, three. I had only three payments come in from individual stocks, and then I had one come in from the Vanguard Tech Fund, and then another from my settlement fund, which is really money market. And so my three individual stocks came down to Google, Waste Management, UnitedHealth.
Okay.
And across the board, we're looking at, for Waste Management and UnitedHealth under a 2% dividend yield, and Google under a 1% dividend yield, and then the Vanguard Tech Fund also under, I believe, under a 1% dividend yield?
Yeah, it was like about half a
Yeah.
percent. Yeah.
Yeah. So Google came in for me at around $41.69. Waste Management, the newest position in my portfolio, which I might buy more of because it is currently down.
Why not, man?
For anybody
Yeah.
out there looking for a good stock, I
It's
gotta
a
say
beast.
this it's amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
One man's trash really is another man's dividend there. And then we have United Health coming in at $64.02. The settlement fund, thanks to Vanguard just having that money invested for me, brought in $36.73. And then we round up there with the ETF at $94.20 for 250.67.
Dude, that's nice. That's awesome. I know what you mean too when it's like less is more, because there is something about having less payments but have each one be a larger number. And I think that can be pretty exciting because you get to, like I was super stoked to see $100 for SCHD. And one of the ways you can have more payments like that of that size is to have less holdings and be heavier weighted in less holdings. So that makes sense. I was going to ask you, I have two questions for you. I might have three, but let's start with these first two. Do you think Google, because their first dividend raise was only about 5%, do you think that, do you see that going up in the future? Do you see them raising it more aggressively as time goes on? What do you think? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, for sure. Because I initially got invested into Alphabet before it was a dividend paying stock, and the reason I did was because it dropped precipitously, and I was like, this is a golden opportunity. And sure enough, after like a week, the thing shot right back up, and so I made a ton of money with Alphabet. And then I think it was like a month after that, they were like, surprise, we're now a dividend paying company, and I was like, would you look at that? So. I'm invested in Google for reasons outside the dividend, distributions. And so that in of itself, I think is an important factor if you want to take a look at Google, because I even think where they're at right now. So in short, I don't think they're going to be jacking up that dividend anytime soon. I think they're going to take it like Apple, speed slow. It will be growing, but definitely not at rates of like UnitedHealth or Waste Management for that matter as well. I think Waste Management's it's definitely over an average growth rate of 10%. But with Alphabet, I think we have to factor in their future because they are all hands on deck, all capital being thrown towards the future, which is AI, quantum computing, and that takes a lot of firepower. And
Yeah.
so, again, if you take out your dividend income interest and you're aiming for a company that is literally revolutionizing the future and how we search the internet, how we use technology, that's Google. And you just can't, if you're one of these big players, even Apple for that matter, you can't have a 3% dividend yield.
Right.
You're
And it
the
wouldn't make
gift to the
sense.
shareholder is the appreciation.
Yeah. I actually agree with that. As much as okay, so I think that they have the financial makeup to be a great dividend growth stock and raise it like at a similar rate as something like a UnitedHealth. I think they could easily afford double-digit dividend increases, but I'm looking at like their, some metrics like return on equity, return on invested capital, stuff like that. And if you look at their return on invested capital, at least for the last 4 or 5 years, it's consistently over 20%. So their retention of that capital and redeployment back into the business is very efficient, and it's actually getting better over time. Like 2021, it was low 20s. As of 2024, it's creeping up to 26%, and so it's slowly like they're doing better with their returns on invested capital over time. And so if that's the case, like if they're just able to generate higher and higher returns on the capital that they hold on to, then from that perspective, it makes sense to not raise the dividend as aggressively. If the return on invested capital was going in the other direction, then maybe you could make the opposite case. And I think selfishly as dividend investors and seeing a company with a financial profile like Alphabet, we would want them to have those double digit increases. But from a long-term perspective, if they're doing a better and better job of redeploying that money back into themselves, then it's like, have at it. That's what we're invested for, really, at the end of the day. Go make that business better. That's really what we want as shareholders.
If you ask me this question again in 30 years, I'll change my answer.
Yeah, totally.
I'll be like, oh, I wish, I hope they do. Right now, I'm totally fine with, their current strategy, and I am rooting for Alphabet to just again revolutionize the future. It means more money in my pocket. Some of the concerns that I do have about Alphabet is just the fact that will they be the leader when it comes to quantum computing and AI, because that will make a big difference. And this is kind of the ChatGPT versus Gemini, and who will win. And I just Google is still the dominant name when you hear someone that's going to go search anywhere. I mean, Google it. I Google it. No one's saying I ChatGPT'd it right now, or at least they are. Actually, I'll take that back. They're not saying it as much though, right? The slogan, if you will, is still like, oh, why don't you just Google it? And until I hear the Joe Schmo out there saying I ChatGPT'd it, or I Gemini, Gemini is Google, I ChatGPT'd it, I open AI'd it, then I'm not going to be so concerned.
At least in my experience, I use them for two different things. So if I want to look at the menu of a restaurant, I'm not going to ChatGPT for that. I'm going to Google the restaurant name. It'll take me to their website. I'll find the menu from there. It'll take me to Yelp or whatever. For something simple like that, I'll just Google it. But if I really want to have something explained to me, if I really want to get a bit deeper in the weeds with whatever I'm looking for or wanting to know, that's when I've been turning to ChatGPT. Like, for example, yesterday, and now you can talk to it. I think we've talked about this before. Now you can actually talk to ChatGPT and have a conversation with it, which is a lot of fun. And I've been doing that more lately. And yesterday, as I was sweeping up around the house, I was just talking to ChatGPT, asking it to explain to me living trusts. What is a living trust? Why would someone use it? And I don't know. It's just something that popped into my head, and I'm like, let me ask ChatGPT and have her, because I have the one of the chick voices talking to me. I'll have her explain it to me.
You don't want another man in your household.
That's true. And we ended up having a great chat. ChatGPT has great chat and good banter, as they say over in the UK, and a good bants. But
why not Gemini?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think I
And I asked because actually just earlier today, my boss is like a huge Gemini guy, and
Yeah.
he's like, I use Gemini for so many things. I'm like, I'm a ChatGPT guy. I almost feel like this is turning into the Apple versus Android. Now it's just
Yeah.
Gemini versus ChatGPT.
Well, for me, it's nothing against Gemini. It's when all this stuff first started coming out. I mean, Chat GPT was like the OG. That was the first one, right? And so naturally, you're curious about it. You start using it because everyone's talking about it. You try it out for yourself. And I just think that's how it went for me. I just started with Chat GPT. I've come to, I don't know, get some more of the nuance of using ChatGPT. I've got more comfortable talking to it and coming up with prompts to get what I want out of it. And so I think I've just used it now so regularly that I don't feel the need to switch to Gemini. And I'm sure that in a lot of ways they're the same or very similar. But I'm already over here on ChatGPT. It's going fine for me, so I don't feel that pressure point. I don't feel that pain to switch. I don't really have a reason to switch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting. It goes to kind of prove the point that you got to be first to market sometimes, just win the
Yeah.
masses. And it's kind of like even Tesla, I think about, if any of these other Chinese competitors came out first, they'd have the lead and they would have their lead in the market share as well because of it. Even if another company came up, on their sixth and potentially was doing it better
Yeah.
or just obviously doing it differently, people are already glued to what they first used.
Yeah. Interestingly with cars historically have never been something where people have a lot of brand loyalty. Like if you bought a Ford one time, the next time you might explore like a Ram, or like I used to own Volkswagens, but now I drive a Honda. I like Volkswagens, but not enough that I'm going to be married to that one brand for the rest of my life. That's definitely the opposite of what you see with Apple, obviously. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see because cars now are implementing so much software. There's a huge software component to it. It's going to be, and personalization too, actually. And so with those additions, it'll be interesting to see if people do establish that brand loyalty. I do think you're seeing that in a big way with Tesla. People, I mean, I only hear good things about people who've owned them. And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see if people, once their first Tesla wears out, if they upgrade then to the latest version. I wonder if it'll be like the iPhone of cars in that way.
Well, it's funny because Tesla, everybody always says it's not a car company; it's a software company. It's a tech company, and that's just it's true. And I'm also laughing because as you were like, there's no brand loyalty in cars. I think of all the Jeep people out there who, if they do their
That's
Jeep Wave,
true.
I'm like,
That's
I feel
true.
like in order to have something like that in the car, you know, uh, industry, you need something like Jeep. Where I wonder how that even started, Jeep
I
people.
don't
If
know,
there's a
but
Jeep person out there, let us know in the comments where the heck that wave started for Jeep people.
yeah, and Jeep's like maybe that is a slight exception because in addition to, I mean, I guess a Jeep is a lot of people's daily drivers, like a Grand Cherokee, or not a Grand Cherokee, like a Wrangler or whatever.
Is it,
Um,
I might be mistaken. It's only Wranglers, right? Maybe
no,
that's it.
they've got other models too. Jeep has the Cherokee, they've got Grand Cherokee, they've got
No, with the wave.
oh, with the Wave, yes, it is. It is.
It's specific to the. Okay, so there's even
Yeah.
like a community within the Jeep community,
Yeah.
a
But
sub community.
I think that affinity only really applies to that model of their car. I don't think people are like married to their Grand Cherokees. I mean, I really like
Yeah.
Grand Cherokees, but I think it's really more so just the Wranglers because they're so. I mean, people mod them, people customize them so much. They take them off roading. They take them up. Oh gosh, what's the place near Lake Tahoe? I don't remember what it's called, but they go rock climbing with them and do all. So it's kind of like a toy in a sense too. It's different than driving your Honda Civic down the road. So it's a little bit different in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. Can you imagine the Honda Civic crew, waving?
Yeah,
We're frugal. Hey.
yeah,
That's just how I picture that, or what, like a Prius. I feel like Prius people might have something. I
yeah.
don't know.
Prius people gotta have something. My dad loves Prius. You know, everyone loves to. Growing up, you'd see a Prius, you'd always rip on it. At least we would in Yuba City, California. But my dad would always be like, "Oh no, those are pretty hot vehicles. Those are pretty slick." We always used to give him a tough time.
My family has always been a Nissan or Honda crew. And, you know, for our family, it always came down to the dollar, right? So they're good cars. They're quality cars. They last a lifetime.
Yes.
Honda's crazy. I mean, really, talk about a car that just lasts.
Seriously.
It's like the Duracell battery of cars. And not only that, but it was cheap to fill them up on gas.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. My if I had to buy a car right now, my brother actually just bought a car. He bought a Volkswagen SUV type of model where it's half electric.
Oh, okay, nice.
It's like the new model, yeah. But I asked him, I said, why not a Tesla? You know, like I would look into a Tesla. I feel like I would get a Tesla if I needed to get a car. But, you know, my big plans are, first of all, I'm lucky I live in a nice close-knit city and I don't need a car. It just saves me a ton of expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And I did think about getting a motorcycle, though. I used to, actually, you'll like this, Ryan. I lived in California for a bit, in San Francisco, and I had a Vespa.
No, that's awesome. I was going to say, I could see you on like a moped. That's awesome.
I loved it. I remember, this is like the best story ever for a Vespa guy. You know, I went to this club it was a club, whatever, with one of my buddies. And, you know, my buddy, I kind of feel bad that this happened the way that it happened, but my buddy was like, he knew this girl that was there. He had a big crush on her. And she didn't really like him, you know, but I was there with him and I was like, oh man, like, introduce, you know, they were their girlfriends. So he introduces me and he ends up leaving. And I end up staying, you know, a while, much longer than he did. And
so it's just you and the ladies at this point.
Yeah. Okay. And I got to talking to the very girl that he was interested in, but wasn't interested in him. And he was, you know how some guys can like just, I mean, I guess you talk about Duracell batteries. They keep going and like try their odds at a loser's game because she's just not interested, right? Uh-huh. So this is one of those situations for like months he's been pursuing and she's like just nowhere to be found for him. And anyways, I was there and we started to flirt, whatever. And at the end of the night, you know, I'm like, do you want to go I'm a huge dessert guy, dude. So I was like, you want to go grab some like dessert, right? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, cool. I was joking around with her, right? Hot shot. I was like, you could jump on the back of my Vespa, right? And she goes, or you can jump on the back of my motorcycle. And I was like, oh,
really?
Yeah.
Nice.
She was a man, total fox. We're still friends today. I hope she watches this. You know, total fox. Just this like total. I don't want to curse, but BA, you know, biker girl, like blonde. I was like, wow, you know, like. I would and petite though, like I would never see her as like this hardcore street ninja. You know what a street ninja is? Like her bike was all decked out.
Okay, so she had like a street bike, like
sporty. You know, if you look up, you know, a ninja, like they're very very sporty bikes, sexy bikes. You know, but I was like, wow. I will meet you there. You know, I was like following her on my Vespa. I'm like an idiot.
Those things scare me, man. Those things scare me. I've never been a big motorcycle guy, but I do really I think Triumphs are very, very cool. I think they have such a cool look. And I don't know. I feel like my mom would kill me if I ever got one. My wife would kill me if I ever got one. I don't want one enough to actually get one, but I do think that they are very cool.
Yeah, man, I have East Asia plans, as you know, and I can't wait to get to East Asia and just get a Vespa and just drive around or a motorcycle, whatever. It'll probably be a Vespa.
Vespas are still super cool too. I would cruise around in a Vespa, no problem.
Yeah, no, they're fun. They're just when you're comparing yourself on a Vespa to some girl, you know, it's like on a street ninja. That was a real ego check, you know, for me in that moment.
Man, not even. You don't need a street bike to be cool. You're cool just
No,
because
that's
you're
true.
you.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Well,
But
I'll put
dude,
it this way: back in the day, like this is my early 20s, man. I was like, oh, my ego was hit. Today, it's whatever, Macklemore, style.
uh huh. I get you, man. Oh, dude, I was gonna we'll wrap this up in a few minutes, but I was gonna tell you earlier on in the conversation regarding Blossom. So hold on one sec. Peanut wants to look out the window. So, in all the years that I've been making videos and putting out newsletters and, hundreds and hundreds of posts about investing and whatever online, not one of my friends, not one of my siblings, no one really has like taken an interest in it, after shouting about it from the rooftops for so long.
Blossom.
Well, I'm going to tie this to Blossom. I'm talking about
Okay.
investing in general. Until recently, my little brother, 18 years old, and I've seen it, like we've kind of had some conversations about it over the last couple of months. He's kind of been trickling into it, but he told me a few days ago, he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna start investing. I'm just gonna start investing consistently." And like me growing up, he had like a custodial account and stuff like that, and he just graduated high school, and so he told me he's taken all of that money that he got from his high school graduation, just from people sending gifts or whatever. He's putting that just right into stocks. And I told him just put it in the S&P 500, which he's going to do. He just signed up on Blossom like a couple days ago. I thought that was like the coolest thing. I was so stoked about that.
Well, now he's in the in crowd.
Now he's cool.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
It's
but you
almost
know
like
what?
he bought
It's
himself
a
a
big
street
move.
bike.
I was gonna say, man, put your Vespa away.
Yeah, exactly.
Level up. It's once you take that move, though, I think this is where it gets exciting. I was actually just explaining this to the kid earlier, the 12-year-old, I'm sitting with, and I said, man, it's like dominoes. Like once one domino goes down, if it's set up correctly, the rest of them go down. And I feel like it's very similar, where if you start investing, that's one domino. That domino falls onto, say, the Blossom community. That's the second domino. Then you start talking to people on Blossom and you start talking about investing, and all these dominoes just keep falling. And if all of your dominoes fall the right way, you win.
Yep, absolutely. Well said, man. And he's not the only one that I've seen or talked to lately about his age who's wanting to get into this stuff. Actually, a decent amount of his friend group, from what my brother told me, a decent amount of his friend group has wanted to get interested in investing too, or wanted to start investing for themselves too, at like 17, 18, 19 years old. And so I've been thinking, man, is this finally becoming cool? Like, is this finally becoming a cool thing for kids or young adults to get into? It kind of seems that way. It seems like it's starting to skew a bit younger and younger. I hope so. I hope that's the case.
I got the only thing in my head right now: make investing great again. MIGA.
Yeah. There you go.
But look, I think that because of social media and because of communities like Blossom, it is in fact reaching the younger crowds, the younger generations much quicker. And thank God, because
Yeah.
the schools aren't doing it for whatever God knows reason. They're not teaching anything that is insanely useful to everybody, which is finance, personal finance, and investing. So somebody's got to do it. And I'm just happy to see, young kids, 17, 18, start investing. I wish I did. I wish when I was, back working for Nino's Pizza Star in Princeton, New Jersey, bringing in literally hundreds upon hundreds of dollars a week. If I had an understanding of investing, I would have invested it. I know
Yeah.
me, and I would have invested it. But I didn't conceptually, like my dad was more in the money markets. My uncle who was over at Fidelity, he worked more with, he only ever invested in indexes, which is fine. He was an index investor. He worked predominantly at Fidelity in bonds, managing $25 billion. So pretty substantial amount there. But he was a bond guy, a bond trader. And so really there was no one to talk stocks with. And I knew, because I would read, 18, 19 years old, I knew for a fact that I had to get started investing. It was one of those things, though, every time someone says you need to get in the market, they end there. Like, you need to
Yeah.
invest. And I'm like, in what?
Yeah,
How?
exactly. It's like, what is the market? I don't even know. I know that there is the market, but I don't know what the market even is.
Yeah, I remember people saying, you need to get in the stock market. I'm like, yeah, I know you've told me that, but how do I do that? Like, when you open a brokerage account, then what do you do? Like, there's so many questions. So a community like Blossom for these young guys, epic. I mean, amazing.
Epic, man. It just goes back to, why, just kind of like what we were talking about earlier in the conversation. This is why we do it. This is why we post the videos on our channel. This is why we have these conversations. Spread the good word. Hopefully change people's lives.
This is why we do it. Now we want to know why everybody else out there is doing it. And while we're at it and talking about, exactly why everybody else is doing it, for this video particularly, I want to ask everybody to let Ryan and I know just how much dividend income you brought in this past month in June. Let us know some of your top performers. Let us know some of the stocks that if you've kicked any out of your portfolio or brought any new stocks in. Like, let us know all the details on your portfolios, because in doing so, a matter of fact, it is the guys like Ryan's younger brother and his friends that will be watching this type of video and down there in the comments, so we can help them out. Everybody helps us out. And I guess I'll conclude on my end by just saying until next time, we will see you all in the deep end next week.